Hey guys, Dakota here. This week I'm going to be talking to you about what exactly it is to be waterproof and also the difference between a waterproof garment and a water resistant garment. So first off, we got to determine what is the difference between being water resistant and being waterproof. So essentially, on the base level, waterproof is just something that doesn't let any water penetrate at all, and water resistant is something that just resists it more than normal fabric would. Over time, even waterproof items become non-waterproof and they lose their water-resistant properties to them. So, no matter what, there's always going to be some water getting in, whether it takes time or such a large amount of water pressure or rainfall or something like that. There is going to be water that penetrates any garment because of these conditions. It's important to go over how exactly they quantify and represent waterproofness in the numbers. So there's a test that is done at material labs and clothing companies and things like that called a hydrostatic head test, where basically you put a garment inside of a vacuum tube and then they place water onto it and then they measure the amount of water it takes before it penetrates the garment. This is usually measured in millimeters. And then also they have a test using the same machine where they measure how much air is able to escape the garment, and they measure that in grams. The higher number of millimeters means the higher amount of waterproofness that the garment has, and the higher number of grams means the more breathability that it has. So in terms of number, something around 0 to 5,000 millimeters of waterproofness through the hydrostatic head test means that it's probably just water resistant. Anything above 5,000 in between there and maybe like 10,000 means it's generally waterproof for normal rains. And then anything above 10,000 millimeters is waterproof in most conditions. You could be in a snowstorm or a heavy rainstorm and you're probably not going to be getting wet at all under that kind of rating. So on top of the hydrostatic head test, they also test conditions that simulate real life. They simulate rain showers inside of these labs, and they also simulate different amounts of pressure and different angles that the water can hit these garments at, because that all has an effect on how waterproof the surface of the garment is. So in terms of the properties of the fabric itself and what determines this like waterproofness and what allows the scale to change for what it's rating on this hydrostatic head test has to do with the properties of the actual material itself that the garment is made off of, and also how it is woven together. To start off, if the fabric is naturally in a fiber that is more hydrophobic or waterproof than another fabric, then off the start it's going to perform better in these tests. For example, synthetic materials such as plastics like nylons and even proprietary plastics like Gore-Tex are essentially membranes that are created out of synthetic materials, and a lot of times the synthetic materials are a lot more water resistant than natural materials. In order for a natural material to be water resistant, you really need to weave the fabric very, very tight. For example, there's ways of weaving cotton together, and one of the brands that has a proprietary cotton that is waterproof is Ventile. The way that they achieve that is being able to weave the fabric so tight that no water is able to penetrate it. Whereas with things like Gore-Tex, nylon and other plastics that are blended into it are naturally going to be more water resistant because of the properties of the fabric on a microscopic level. On top of the properties of the physical material and how it's woven together, there's also Dwr treatments that get applied to the fabric, and that stands for Durable Water Repellent. DWR is a specially made hydrophobic chemical mixture that is usually like a polyurethane or different kinds of plastics that they make in the lab, and they spray that onto the garment after it is made, or maybe before the fabric is even cut into different textiles for different pieces. Once the treatment is done, they let it dry, and then it's got a special coating that kind of lasts for a while, but over time, like I said, wear and things like that can get damage to the DWR coating. Now, DWR coatings most commonly get applied to natural fibers that don't have their natural water repellency in terms of how the fabric is woven or the nature of the material itself. However, things like Gore-Tex, rain jackets, and like hiking gear, and even like super intense expedition jackets for like Antarctica and things like that, they still get a DWR treatment because that helps on top of the fabric being intensely tightly woven or super hydrophobic to begin with. So the reasons why you need to know about these things and why you need to keep it in mind is because sometimes it's not always advertised on a garment that it's going to be water resistant or has some kind of property to it that allows it to be water resistant. For example, there are these Nike Lab utility pants that I own that online they don't advertise that there's a DWR coating or anything like that. However, when I received it and I noticed the material is very similar to some ACG woven pants that I have, and I thought maybe they had used leftover material or something like that to make these utility pants, but I tested it and it seemed to be that there is a coating on it, and I think that they did have a DWR applied to it to make it lightly water resistant. So if you keep all of these things in mind when you're shopping and when you go out in the wild, because there's some tests that you got to do in order to be able to tell, then you can maybe come up on some kind of techwear piece that isn't advertised as that, or something that's just cool that happens to be water resistant that you didn't really expect, which is always a plus. So on top of the physical properties of how tightly woven the material is and what the material is made out of, ways that you can determine whether or not something is water resistant or waterproof, whether or not it has a label on the tag at the store, maybe you're purchasing it on eBay secondhand, you're not exactly sure, is you can look at the composition of the fabric. A lot of the times poly blend pants or jackets or things like that have some kind of water resistance to them. If they're not going to have water resistance to them, they'll either have stretch or extra breathability because of this poly blended fabric or completely plastic nylon type of fabric. Now, just looking at the composition tag and seeing what it's made out of is not enough. You're going to have to feel it and look at the fabric itself and look at the weaves and see if the way that the fabric is woven together looks like it's tightly woven or if it's pretty loose and breathable. If it's like stretchy and loose and breathable, then it's probably not going to be water resistant. However, if it looks densely woven, maybe it's a little bit stiff and has some shape to it when you wear it, then I would say that there is a pretty good chance that it might be water resistant. Maybe not waterproof, but a good chance that it's water resistant. Now, on top of that, you can also tell when something is DWR coated usually. It looks like it has a sheen to it. You can even tell when, let's say like wax denim, you know that look that a wax denim has? Well, back in the day before they had DWR coatings, naturally to waterproof jackets and make things like more water resistant than they were naturally was to apply beeswax to it. That's why you can get like wax jackets and things like that. It allows like a level of natural water resistance. And garments that get covered in any kind of coating have like a different look to them as if they've been coated. So it's kind of easy to tell. Now, the third and final way that you can test something is you need to have it with you in real life. You have to be shopping for it IRL, but this test has helped me countless times when I've been thrifting. It's helped me when I've been at a Nike outlet store and I wasn't sure if a product was going to be water resistant at all. It's kind of weird, but what you can do is carry around like a water bottle and get a few droplets into the cap and kind of just drop it onto the fabric itself, and then you'll know instantly if it's water resistant or not. So now I'm going to show you 3 different garments. I'm going to show you the different water resistant properties to them and explain to you exactly how you can tell based off of the look and the touch and things about it that make it water resistant, and I'll show you a field test of that little water bottle trick. So first up in my lap, what I have is a Nike ACG Gore-Tex Packable Windstopper fabric. Now, this Gore-Tex fabric is only 1 or 2 layers, I believe. If you get like a normal shell jacket, it's usually 3 layers with insulation. Since this is packable, it's a special thin Gore-Tex, but it's still waterproof because of the properties of how it's woven and the fact that the Gore-Tex material is a proprietary nylon, which properties of plastics make them a lot more hydrophobic on a microscopic level. Now, I'm going to show you, with this water bottle, I've poked a hole into it so I don't have to twist off the cap and try to put a few droplets and drop it onto it just for sakes for the video, but when I go out thrifting and things like that, I typically just get a normal water bottle and drop a few drops into the cap and do this. But as you can see, the water beads up a lot and kind of just rolls around. And that is because there is a DWR coating on this jacket, and also because of the things I mentioned before with the nature of the fabric itself and the fact that it's made specifically to do this. Now, the second piece I have here is very interesting how they made this water resistant actually. This doesn't have a coating on it, and it's completely due to how they wove the material together. So this material is just cotton, but it's a special cotton that's infused with Teflon. They usually don't use Teflon to do waterproofing, but this is a pair of pants from Stone Island, and they're a lot more experimental with their textiles. So I'm going to show you exactly how water resistant Teflon can be when it's woven into cotton. It's actually pretty incredible. So there's like a ton of beating up on these, like as much as you'd expect from something that's synthetic. Like it's pretty cool and amazing that this is made with cotton. Now I showed you two examples of one of them was a proprietary fabric that is specifically built to be waterproof, and then another one was an experimental one that made it water resistant that had Teflon woven into it. This third example I'm going to show you is not techwear. I don't think it was intentionally made to be water resistant at all. However, this coat that I have, since it is such densely woven cotton, it has a pretty good water resistant to it. I have this off-white parka that I bought that it's just a normal fishtail parka. I got it years ago before I ever really got into techwear, and I just really liked it. And once I got into techwear, I did this test with like a water bottle, because I wanted to see if I could go out into a little rainstorm that's going on, because there's a huge hood on this jacket. And I kind of just looked at the fabric, and I thought to myself, well, that seems like really densely woven cotton. I think that it will beat up the fabric a bit. And now this is not completely waterproof at all. It's just kind of water resistant, but it's an example to show you that sometimes the nature of the fabric itself, whether or not it is going to be completely intended that it's water resistant, it sometimes will be. So there's going to be some soaking in this jacket more so than the other ones, but as you can see, there's a lot of beading and just rolling off of the fabric. And there's also on the inside an extra nylon layer added, which blocks out the water even more. I've gone into full snowstorms and rainstorms with this and stayed completely dry. So that's something that you have to check out for yourself in person and do these tests, because you'll be able to find things that aren't advertised as being waterproof or water resistant, and they will be. I hope you guys learned something about the properties of garments that make them waterproof or water resistant. Leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Let me know what you guys would like to see in the future. Until next time, stay Gucci, guys.